Have you ever heard a sound so haunting that it made your skin crawl? A sound that seemed to seep into your very bones, whispering dark secrets that only the brave would dare to confront. The camera pans through a dimly lit recording studio, its walls lined with vintage audio equipment that hums ominously in the background. Shadows dance across the room as the flickering lights cast an eerie glow on the protagonist, Lucas Mendonça, a sound engineer known for his obsession with capturing the perfect audio experience. He stands at the center of a studio, his brow furrowed in concentration, as he adjusts the knobs on a mysterious vintage microphone he recently unearthed from an old estate sale. The air is thick with an unsettling tension, as if the very atmosphere is alive, brimming with a sense of foreboding. Lucas, immersed in his work, has always believed that sound can evoke profound emotions, but tonight, there's something different. A strange frequency begins to emerge from the depths of the equipment. It resonates like a dark melody, wrapping around him like a fog, pulling him deeper into a world where reality blurs with nightmare. Before we dive deeper into this chilling tale, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. You won't want to miss the horrors that await as we unravel the mystery behind the sound that kills. As the words leave his lips, the camera zooms in on Lucas's eyes, wide with both curiosity and dread, hinting at the darkness that lies ahead. Outside, the wind howls, rattling the windows, and for a fleeting moment, a whisper echoes in the room, almost indecipherable, but filled with a palpable sense of terror, an omen of the chaos that is about to unfold. The stage is set, and the audience is drawn into a world where sound becomes a weapon, and silence could very well be the only refuge from the impending horror. As the night deepens, Lucas dives into his work, but the atmosphere in the studio shifts unsettlingly. It begins with a soft crackle, like static, buzzing faintly in the background. As Lucas adjusts the levels, the sound morphs into an alluring hum that pulls at the edges of his consciousness. He closes his eyes, allowing the frequency to wash over him, and for a moment, he feels an inexplicable sense of calm. But beneath that tranquility lies an undercurrent of dread, like a predator lurking just out of sight. Suddenly, he is transported to an otherworldly realm, where vibrant colors swirl and shift like a living painting. He finds himself standing on a hill, bathed in the glow of an eerie moon that seems to pulse with the rhythm of his heartbeat. A faint echo of the studio's humming persists in the background, growing louder and more insistent, almost as if it's calling to him. The air is thick with an intoxicating scent of damp earth and blooming night flowers, but there's an underlying note of decay that makes his stomach churn. As he walks forward, the landscape begins to distort, warping around him like a mirage. Shadows stretch and twist in unnatural ways, and he hears whispers, fragmented voices drifting through the air, speaking his name with an unsettling familiarity. Each syllable feels like a knife slicing through the fabric of reality, sending chills down his spine. Lucas can feel his breath quicken as he tries to decipher their words, but they slip away like smoke, leaving only a sense of foreboding. His senses heighten, and the once beautiful surroundings now feel like a trap, ensnaring him in a web of illusions. He reaches out to touch a nearby tree, its bark rough and cold against his fingertips, but the moment he does, the whispers grow louder, turning into frantic cries filled with anguish. "Run! Leave this place!" they scream, echoing in his mind, and he recoils, a shudder of fear racing through him. The sensation of something sinister lurking just beyond his vision claws at his sanity. In a panic, Lucas stumbles backward, the idyllic scene shattering around him like glass. The ground beneath him trembles, and with each heartbeat, the once vibrant colors drain away, replaced by a suffocating darkness that swallows all light. The frequency from the studio transforms into a deafening roar, drowning out his thoughts, and Lucas realizes he's not just dreaming. He's being drawn into a nightmare that has no end. As the chaos envelopes him, he awakens abruptly, gasping for air, sweat trickling down his brow, and the lingering echo of the whispers clinging to his mind like a haunting melody. He sits up in the studio, heart racing, the familiar hum of the equipment now twisted and ominous. Lucas glances around, the shadows in the corners of the room stretching toward him as if alive, and he can't shake the feeling that he's not alone. Something from that dream, something dark and insidious, has followed him back to reality, waiting to be unleashed. The morning light creeps into the studio, casting long shadows that dance along the walls, but Lucas is far from reassured. The echoes of the dream linger in his mind, a cacophony of disjointed voices and unshakable dread. He tries to dismiss it as merely the product of fatigue, yet a gnawing anxiety claws at him, an instinctive warning that something is fundamentally wrong. As he sips his coffee, the bitter taste feels oddly metallic on his tongue, and he wonders if the strange frequency he encountered has begun to seep into his reality. Later that day, as Lucas reviews recordings from the previous night, he notices a chilling pattern. With each playback of a mysterious frequency, the images on the screen flicker, revealing fleeting shadows that dart just out of view. The audio crackles, but amidst the distortion, he catches a faint, disembodied whisper, barely audible yet unmistakably urgent. Do not listen. Goosebumps erupt along his arms, and he feels the air grow heavy, pressing down on him like an invisible weight. He pauses the recording, his heart pounding in his chest, and glances around the studio, half expecting to see a figure lurking in the dim light. Determined to uncover the truth, Lucas decides to invite a couple of friends, Mia and Tom, over for a listening session. They arrive just as the sun sets, the studio bathed in an eerie glow from the flickering lights. The atmosphere is thick with tension as they gather around the soundboard, excitement mixed with an unspoken sense of foreboding. "You guys have to hear this," Lucas urges, trying to mask his apprehension. He plays the recording, the haunting frequency filling the room. At first, Mia and Tom are captivated, nodding along to the rhythm, but as the sound intensifies, Lucas can see the shift in their demeanor. Suddenly, the lights flicker violently, and the temperature drops, wrapping the room in a chill that feels like icy fingers tracing along their skin. Tom's expression shifts from fascination to horror as he stares at the walls, which now seem to pulse with shadows. "Do you feel that?" he asks, his voice trembling. Mia's laughter dies in her throat, replaced by a wide-eyed terror as she glances over her shoulder, convinced she saw something dart behind the equipment. The recording grows louder, a swirling mass of sound that drowns out their breaths, engulfing them in an almost tangible darkness. As the frequency reaches its peak, Lucas's heart races. The whispers return, echoing through the studio like a sinister chant, each syllable crashing over them like waves. "Get out! Escape! It's coming!" They warn, and panic erupts. Mia bolts for the door, her face pale, but it slams shut with a deafening bang, trapping them inside. Tom screams, the sound piercing through the din, but Lucas is rooted in place, horror-stricken. The lights flicker again, casting long, monstrous shadows that twist and curl, as if alive. The walls seem to pulse with malevolence, the air thick with an overwhelming sense of dread, and Lucas realizes that this frequency isn't just sound, it's a conduit for something far darker. Just as he tries to rationalize the chaos, the studio door bursts open, revealing a hallway filled with swirling darkness, almost as if it beckons them into an abyss. "We have to get out of here," Mia screams, her voice cracking with fear. As they rush toward the door, a chilling laugh echoes in the air, a sound that is neither human nor animal, sending a jolt of primal terror through their veins. In that moment, Lucas understands the truth. They are not just battling an unsettling frequency. They are confronting a darkness that has been unleashed, one that feeds on fear and madness. The sinister whispers grow louder, clawing at their sanity as they realize that the nightmare is just beginning. As they make a desperate escape into the unknown, Lucas knows that whatever they are running from has only just begun to awaken. The chaos subsides momentarily as Lucas, Mia, and Tom stumble out of the studio into the dimly lit hallway, their breaths ragged and hearts racing. The door slams shut behind them, echoing ominously, as if sealing them away from any chance of escape. The hall is steeped in shadow, the flickering fluorescent lights casting erratic patterns that seem to dance with a life of their own. It feels as though the walls are closing in, breathing in sync with their rising panic. Lucas's mind races, recalling the eerie whispers that had filled the studio, now seeming to reverberate through the very air they breathe. "Where do we go?" Mia's voice quakes, and her eyes dart around as if expecting something to lunge from the shadows. "We need to get out of here now." Just as Lucas opens his mouth to respond, a deafening sound shakes the corridor, a distorted echo of the frequency they had just played. It reverberates through the walls like an angry beast, twisting and warping, morphing into a cacophony of tormented cries. The sound is so intense it feels like it's vibrating in their bones, blurring the line between sound and sensation. In the distance, they hear a door creak open, and from the depths of the darkness, a figure emerges, a silhouette against the flickering lights, shrouded in shadow. Its movements are fluid and unnatural, like a marionette controlled by unseen strings. The air thickens with dread as the figure draws closer, revealing features obscured by darkness. But the eyes, they glow with an otherworldly light, piercing through the gloom. Lucas feels an instinctive urge to flee, but his feet are rooted to the ground, a primal fear anchoring him in place. What are you?" Tom stammers, stepping backward, but the figure only smiles, revealing a mouth too wide, filled with sharp, glistening teeth. It begins to hum, a dissonant melody that resonates with the very frequency they had unleashed. The sound wraps around them, tightening like a noose, and the whispers return, now clearer, echoing the figure's song, a haunting lullaby that promises peace but radiates terror. Suddenly, Lucas's surroundings begin to shift again, blurring the line between their reality and the nightmarish world they had just escaped. The walls of the hallway ripple like a disturbed pond, warping and bending as the darkness stretches to engulf them. Panic surges through Lucas as he realizes they are trapped in a cycle, a loop that binds them to the very source of the horror they've unleashed. "Run!" he finally yells, shattering the paralyzing fear that held him captive. They turn to flee, but the figure lunges, moving with unnatural speed. The air becomes electric with terror as Lucas feels the cold breath of the creature on his neck, a whisper slithering into his ear. You cannot escape the sound. He stumbles forward, adrenaline coursing through his veins as they race down the corridor, desperate to find a way out. The hallway seems endless, each turn leading them deeper into the heart of the studio's darkness. Just when it seems all hope is lost, they burst into a large, dimly lit room filled with old sound equipment, the air thick with dust and decay. But as they step inside, the room reverberates with the hum of the same sinister frequency. The walls throb with energy, and the shadows twist menacingly, forming shapes that reach out toward them like fingers of darkness. "Lucas, what do we do?" Mia gasps, her face pale with terror as the glowing eyes of the figure loom closer, their light flickering ominously. Lucas frantically scans the room, searching for a means to silence the malevolent sound that surrounds them. He spots a large control panel at the far end, wires and buttons strewn haphazardly across its surface, each one pulsating with the very energy that binds their fate. In that moment of desperation, he makes a decision. He must confront the source of the terror. "We have to overload the system," he shouts, rallying what remains of their courage. With a sense of urgency, they rush toward the panel, knowing that failure could mean surrendering their minds to the insatiable hunger of the nightmare. As they approach, the figure behind them lets out a bone-chilling laugh, echoing off the walls, a sound that feels both ancient and primal. You think you can silence the truth. The sound will always find you. Lucas can feel the darkness pressing in, wrapping around him, and as he reaches for the controls, he knows that their survival hinges on a single, terrifying choice. The air grows thick with tension, and in that moment, The line between reality and nightmare blurs once more, leaving them standing at the precipice of a horror they can scarcely comprehend. As Lucas, Mia, and Tom stand before the ominous control panel, the air crackles with an electric tension. The dissonant frequency reverberates through the room, pulsating like a living entity, wrapping around them like a thick fog. Lucas's hands tremble as he hovers over the buttons, acutely aware of the entity lurking behind them. The figure, now a looming specter of dread, shifts and hovers just beyond the flickering lights, its glowing eyes fixated on their every move, as if feeding off their fear. "Lucas, are you sure this is going to work?" Mia asks, her voice barely a whisper, quaking with the weight of dread that blankets the room. Tom stands beside her, wide-eyed, every instinct screaming at him to run. But there's nowhere to go. The walls are closing in, the air growing heavier with each passing second. Lucas's mind races, battling against the primal instinct to flee. He knows that whatever they're dealing with is far more insidious than he ever imagined, a malevolent force woven into the very fabric of sound itself. With a deep breath, Lucas slams his hand down on the first button, triggering a sequence of lights that flicker wildly, casting chaotic shadows around the room. The frequency shifts, transforming from an eerie hum into a cacophony of screams and cries, echoing with the tormented souls of those who had come before them. It feels as though the studio itself is alive, its walls pulsing with the memories of despair. As Lucas frantically pushes more buttons, he is bombarded by flashes of visions, images of people entranced by the sound, faces twisted in horror, lost to the madness that the frequency brings. "Stop. You have to stop," the figure screeches, its voice warping into a chilling melody that resonates through the air. Each word feels like a dagger, piercing Lucas's resolve. The room begins to warp again, reality bending around them as the air thickens with an oppressive darkness. Lucas fights to stay focused, knowing they're on the brink of something monumental. The stories of the missing, the whispers of madness, this is where it all converges. Suddenly, Lucas's hand hovers over a button marked Overload. A sense of foreboding washes over him. What if this was the key to salvation or their doom? As he hesitates, a vision strikes him like lightning. An old newspaper article detailing the mysterious deaths linked to the studio, each story a chilling reminder of lives claimed by the sound. "It's all connected," he whispers, the realization crashing over him like a tidal wave. The frequency is not merely a sound. It's a curse, a siren's call that lures in its victims, ensnaring them in a web of despair. Mia leans closer, her eyes scanning the old articles scattered across the dusty floor. "Lucas, look at this," she gasps, pointing to a particular headline: "Local musician found dead. Cause unexplained." The name sends chills down Lucas's spine. It's the same name he had seen on the studio's equipment. The previous owner, a man consumed by his own obsession with sound, whose life ended in tragedy. This was no mere coincidence. The entity that haunted the studio was the manifestation of his madness, a dark echo of a life cut short. The figure behind them lets out an inhuman howl, a sound so piercing that it reverberates through the very core of Lucas's being. "You think you can undo what has been done," it bellows, its form shifting, merging with the shadows around them. "You cannot escape your fate. The sound will claim you." In that moment, fear ignites a spark of determination within Lucas. He realizes that he holds the power to either end the cycle of torment or succumb to the very madness that has consumed those before him. "We have to overload it," he yells, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "We have to break this curse." With newfound resolve, he slams his hand down on the overload button. As the panel lights flash violently, the frequency erupts into a blaring crescendo, a tempest of sound that threatens to drown them. The walls shake, the room trembles, and the shadows spiral into a vortex of chaos. Lucas, Mia, and Tom are thrown backward, colliding with the cold, hard floor as the entity lets out a horrific wail that echoes through the studio, resonating with the pain of countless souls. And then, As suddenly as it began, there's silence, a deafening void that envelopes them. The lights flicker once more before plunging the room into darkness. For a fleeting moment, hope flickers in Lucas's heart. But as he stands, the shadows begin to coalesce, forming shapes that swirl ominously around them, and he realizes with dread that the entity is not gone. It has only been awakened further. "Get ready," Lucas breathes, his voice steady despite the terror that churns within him. This isn't over yet. The air grows thick again, electric with impending doom, and he knows that the final confrontation is still ahead, a reckoning with the darkness that refuses to release its grip. As the oppressive silence settles over the studio, Lucas feels a shiver run down his spine. The echoes of the past whisper in his ears, taunting him with secrets he can't fully grasp. Mia and Tom exchange terrified glances, their faces pale under the dim emergency lights that flicker weakly. "What do we do now?" Mia asks, her voice trembling, but Lucas can see the resolve hardening in her eyes. They can't let fear consume them. They must confront whatever malevolence lurks in the darkness. Realizing they need answers, Lucas leads them deeper into the bowels of a studio, hoping to uncover the source of the sinister frequency that has ensnared them. The air grows colder as they venture further, each step echoing like a heartbeat in the suffocating silence. The walls seem to close in around them, adorned with remnants of a studio's past. Old posters, dusty equipment, and faded photographs of musicians who once filled these halls with creativity and passion. Now they are mere ghosts, trapped in a cycle of despair. "Maybe there's something in the archives that can help us," Tom suggests, his voice barely above a whisper. They stumble upon a small, cluttered room filled with dusty shelves lined with old recordings, notes, and manuscripts, each one telling a story of ambition and sorrow. Lucas moves methodically through the clutter, his fingers brushing over the artifacts of a forgotten era, when sound was seen as an art form rather than a weapon of destruction. As Lucas riffling through the piles, a leather-bound journal catches his eye. It's weathered and aged, the pages yellowed with time. He opens it cautiously, revealing entries filled with manic scribbles, the handwriting increasingly erratic as the pages turn. The last few entries send a chill coursing through him. The sound is alive. It feeds on fear. "I can hear them, lost souls, trapped in the frequencies, begging for release." The words seem to pulse on the page, echoing the very horrors they've faced. Before he can share the grim discovery with Mia and Tom, the lights flicker again, plunging the room into darkness. Lucas's heart races as he feels a presence in the shadows, an unsettling weight pressing down on him. The oppressive silence is shattered by a faint melody, hauntingly beautiful yet filled with a sinister undertone. It wraps around him, and he realizes that the frequency is not just a sound. It is a siren's call, luring him deeper into its grasp. "Mia, Tom, we need to move," Lucas urges, his voice rising above the ominous notes that swirl around them. But as they turn to leave, the door slams shut with a thunderous crash, trapping them inside the darkened room. Panic surges through Lucas as he rushes to the door, frantically pulling at the handle, but it won't budge. The melody grows louder, filling his mind with disorienting visions of shadowy figures dancing just beyond the edge of his perception. "Look," Mia cries, pointing toward the far corner of the room. A figure materializes from the darkness, shrouded in an ethereal glow that seems to pulse with the rhythm of the haunting melody. It moves with an otherworldly grace, a warped reflection of a person caught in a moment of joy, forever trapped in the throes of madness. Lucas's heart races as the realization dawns on him. This is not just a figment of his imagination. This is a victim of the sound, a soul ensnared by the very darkness they seek to escape. The figure begins to hum, the melody morphing into a discordant tune that sends chills racing up Lucas's spine. It locks eyes with him, and for a fleeting moment, he sees the agony etched across its face, a silent plea for release. "Help me," it whispers, the words laced with desperation. Lucas can feel the pull of its sorrow, the weight of its despair pressing down on him like an iron shroud. "Mia, Tom, we have to find a way out," he urges, backing away from the spectral figure that seems to reach for him with hands that dissolve into shadows. But as he retreats, more figures emerge from the corners of the room, each one a ghostly echo of a life extinguished, a testament to the horrors unleashed by the frequency. Their mournful whispers intertwine with the melody, creating a cacophony of despair that threatens to drown them in its sorrow. In a surge of adrenaline, Lucas races toward the nearest window, desperately trying to force it open. The glass is cold to the touch, but the figures close in, their combined energies creating a chilling wind that rattles the room. "You can't leave. You must stay and listen," they chant in unison, their voices rising to a fever pitch. But Lucas refuses to succumb to their madness. He gathers every ounce of strength he has left, pulling on the window until the frame creaks in protest. With a final, desperate push, the window shatters, the sound slicing through the air like scream, and a rush of cool night air floods the room. "Come on," he shouts, turning back to Mia and Tom, who stand frozen in fear, mesmerized by the spectral figures. "We can't let this consume us." His voice breaks through the haze, and slowly they begin to move, stumbling toward him as the ghostly figures reach out, their cries growing more frantic. As they leap through the broken window into the night, Lucas feels the weight of the darkness begin to lift, but he knows this is only the beginning. The sound, the frequency, the shadows, they are all still lurking, waiting for their next chance to ensnare them in a web of terror. "We have to end this," Lucas declares, determination flooding his veins. "We need to find out where this all began." As they escape into the cold night, the whispers follow them, promising that the true nightmare is far from over. Breathing heavily, Lucas, Mia, and Tom emerge into the chilling night air, the moon hanging low in the sky like a watchful eye. The remnants of a studio loom behind them, a dark silhouette against the night, still vibrating with the echoes of their escape. But the fleeting sense of safety is quickly replaced by an insidious dread that wraps around them like a fog. They know they can't stay. They must find the heart of the malevolence that has engulfed them. "Where do we go now?" Mia asks, her voice shaking, and Lucas glances around, scanning their surroundings for any sign of refuge. The streets are eerily quiet, each sound magnified. The rustle of leaves, the distant howl of the wind, and the unsettling creaking of the trees, which seem to bend towards them as if alive. "We need to find the original recording studio," Lucas replies, urgency gripping his heart. "It's the only way we can figure out how to stop this." As they move through the deserted streets, a sense of foreboding lingers in the air, thick and palpable. Lucas leads the way, adrenaline surging through him, but with each step, he feels the weight of something unseen pressing down on him. It's as if the shadows themselves are stretching out, grasping at their ankles, trying to pull them back into the darkness they've just escaped. Arriving at the old recording studio, the atmosphere shifts ominously. The building stands abandoned, its windows shattered, casting jagged reflections of moonlight on the ground like shards of broken glass. An overwhelming sense of dread washes over Lucas as he pushes the door open, the creaking hinges sounding like a wail of despair. Inside, the air is stale, filled with the scent of mildew and decay, and every surface is covered in a thick layer of dust. "Stay close," Lucas warns, his voice low and steady, though inside, he feels the terror clawing at his chest. As they step further into the studio, the silence is deafening, broken only by the soft scurrying of rodents in the shadows. The walls seem to close in around them, adorned with fading posters of artists long forgotten, their smiles frozen in time, a stark contrast to the horror that permeates the space. Lucas heads toward the control room, his instincts guiding him to the heart of the studio. As they enter, the atmosphere shifts dramatically. The remnants of sound equipment lay dormant, but he feels a pulse beneath the surface, a heartbeat of the very darkness they seek to vanquish. The air thrums with energy, and the shadows coalesce into shapes that flicker just out of the corner of his eye. What if we can find the original recording? Tom suggests, scanning the room, but there's a tremor in his voice that betrays his fear. Maybe there's a way to reverse what's happening. Lucas nods, determination surging within him, but as he sifts through the debris, a haunting melody begins to seep into the room, the familiar frequency that had tormented them before. It swells and morphs, twisting into a siren's song that beckons them closer. Suddenly, the lights flicker violently, and the temperature drops. Lucas can see his breath in the air, thick with an oppressive chill. "We have to find it now," he urges, the urgency mounting as the melody crescendos, pulling at their very souls. Shadows begin to take form, twisting and writhing, revealing ghostly figures trapped in the throes of anguish. They dance around the control room, their faces contorted in silent screams, forever tethered to the frequency that has claimed them. Mia stumbles back, eyes wide with terror as she whispers, "They're all the souls that were lost." Lucas's heart races as he turns to face the spectral figures. "We need to confront it," he yells, forcing his fear down. "We need to face whatever is at the core of this." As he reaches for the main console, the figures surge forward, their haunting wails merging with the melody, creating a cacophony of despair that threatens to shatter his sanity. "You cannot escape," they scream, their voices echoing in unison, and the shadows swirl, enveloping him in darkness. He fights against the overwhelming force, struggling to maintain his grip on reality. Suddenly, the melody morphs into a dissonant chord, piercing through the air like a knife. Lucas slams his hands down on the control panel, activating the old recording device. The room erupts in a blinding light as the frequency amplifies, the sound oscillating and resonating through the very walls. He feels the energy building, a powerful force ready to explode. "We have to channel this," he shouts to Mia and Tom, desperation in his voice. "Use the energy of the voices." As the figures close in, Lucas takes a deep breath and focuses on the energy swirling around him, the collective sorrow of the trapped souls. "I release you," he cries, pouring every ounce of determination into his words. "You are free." The sound swells, and the shadows seem to respond, their forms shifting and distorting as if caught in a tempest. The room trembles violently, and a blinding flash of light erupts from the control panel, engulfing them in a searing brilliance. The wails of the souls crescendo, a final, haunting cry that resonates through the very fabric of the studio. Lucas feels the energy peak, and in that moment, the shadows explode outward, releasing a wave of darkness that crashes against the walls. For a brief instant, everything freezes. Silence blankets the room, and the air is thick with a lingering tension. But as the light fades, Lucas gasps, overwhelmed by the release of energy. The specters begin to dissolve, their anguished faces transforming into expressions of peace as they drift away, finally freed from the grip of the malevolent sound. As the last echoes of the melody fade into silence, Lucas collapses to the ground, breathless, heart racing. They did it. They confronted the darkness. But as they catch their breath, a lingering chill remains in the air, and a familiar whisper snakes through the silence. "You cannot silence the sound. It will return." Lucas's heart sinks, and he knows in his gut that the battle is far from over. The darkness may have retreated for now, but it waits, patient and hungry, ready to strike when least expected. They may have freed the trapped souls, but in doing so, they have awakened something far more sinister, something that has only just begun to unfold. The dust settles in the control room as the last remnants of the spectral figures dissipate into the air, leaving Lucas, Mia, and Tom breathless and shaken. The oppressive weight that had clung to them begins to lift, but a profound silence replaces it, heavy and unnerving. Lucas's heart races, not with relief, but with an unsettling awareness that their victory may only be a temporary reprieve. The air feels charged, electric with the remnants of the energy they had unleashed, a reminder that they had barely scratched the surface of the darkness that lurked beneath. Did we really do it? Mia whispers, her voice trembling as she glances around the room, half expecting the shadows to reform and reclaim their haunting figures. Lucas stands slowly, pushing himself up from the floor, where he had collapsed in exhaustion. "I think we released them," he replies, his voice hoarse, but a nagging doubt gnaws at him. "But I can't shake the feeling that we've only made things worse." Tom runs a hand through his hair, his eyes wide with fear and disbelief. "What do you mean?" "We faced it. We freed those souls." But Lucas can see it in Tom's eyes, the flicker of uncertainty that mirrors his own. They had confronted a powerful force, but as they step back from the console, he can feel the lingering essence of the frequency wrapping around them like a shroud. Suddenly, the silence is pierced by a low hum, a sound that reverberates through the studio like a distant storm. The frequency they had fought against, the very melody that had ensnared them, begins to rise again, creeping into their consciousness like a malevolent whisper. Lucas's stomach churns, dread pooling in the pit of his gut. "No, it can't be," he breathes, stepping back as the walls of the studio seem to pulse, responding to the sinister melody that was once again awakening. "It's coming back," Mia shouts, her eyes wide with terror. Lucas's heart races as he frantically scans the room for a way out, but the door that had once offered an escape is now locked tight, the sound reverberating like an ominous heartbeat. The shadows coalesce in the corners of the room, swirling and undulating, as if preparing for something dreadful. The very fabric of reality begins to twist, warping under the weight of the frequency. "We need to find a way to contain it," Lucas urges, his mind racing with possibilities. "There has to be a way to stop it for good." He darts towards the main console again, determined to fight back. But just as he reaches for the controls, a figure materializes before them, emerging from the depths of shadows, a silhouette of despair, its features obscured by darkness. The glowing eyes pierce through the gloom, locking onto Lucas with a hunger that sends chills racing down his spine. "You think you can control the sound?" it taunts, its voice a low, sinister whisper that echoes through the studio. "You've only awakened it. The darkness is eternal." Lucas recoils, a wave of terror washing over him as he realizes the figure embodies the very essence of the malevolent force they had battled. It hovers closer, and Lucas feels the cold tendrils of fear wrap around his heart, squeezing tightly. "No, we won't let you take us," he shouts, though doubt creeps into his voice. The figure laughs, a sound that reverberates through the air like a death knell, drowning out his resolve. "You are bound to it now. The sound will always find you. It is a part of you." With those words, the figure lunges forward, and the lights flicker wildly, plunging the room into chaos. The ground shakes beneath their feet as the shadows surge, threatening to envelop them once more. Lucas and his friends scramble backward, hearts pounding, but the darkness closes in, a suffocating void of despair. In that moment of impending doom, Lucas feels a surge of defiance. "We're not done yet," he yells, fighting against the overwhelming fear that threatens to consume him. "We can break the cycle." Gathering his strength, Lucas grasps at the remnants of the energy they had unleashed. He channels it, trying to remember the feelings of liberation they had felt before. "We will not be controlled by this darkness," he declares, his voice rising above the cacophony. The shadows begin to flicker, hesitating as his words cut through the murky haze. With every ounce of determination, Lucas pushes forward, seeking to confront the figure head-on. "You may have haunted this place for too long, but we will find a way to silence you." The shadows shudder, as if reacting to his defiance, and the figure falters, its glowing eyes momentarily dimming. But just as he feels a glimmer of hope, the room shifts again, the walls bending and distorting, creating an endless void that threatens to swallow them whole. You think you can escape, the figure taunts, its voice echoing through the darkness, more powerful than ever. You cannot run from the truth. Lucas's heart races as the shadows lash out, the room spinning violently. He feels the cold grip of despair close around him, a suffocating weight that threatens to drag him into the depths of madness. But in that moment of terror, he knows that they are not alone. He glances at Mia and Tom, their faces etched with fear, yet burning with a shared resolve. "We can do this together," he cries, reaching out to them, his voice a lifeline amidst the chaos. "We have the strength to fight back." They nod, their fear transforming into a steely determination, and together, they push back against the encroaching darkness. With a final burst of energy, they channel their collective will, pushing against the overwhelming force that seeks to drag them into oblivion. The shadows recoil, the melody shifting into a discordant shriek as the figure writhes, its form unraveling in the face of their combined strength. But just as victory seems within reach, the figure's voice pierces through the chaos, dripping with malice. "You think this is over? You've only begun to understand the depth of the darkness. The sound is eternal. It will always come back for you." As the shadows swirl around them, the studio begins to fracture, reality bending like a warped mirror. Lucas feels the pull of the darkness as it threatens to consume them, but deep down, he knows this is not the end. The struggle against the sound, the darkness, it's a cycle that may never truly break. With the figure's warning echoing in their minds, they leap into the unknown, their bodies plunging into the abyss as the studio crumbles around them. The melody fades into silence, but the feeling of dread lingers, a reminder that the darkness is patient and will return when they least expect it. As they fall into the void, a question hangs heavy in the air. Can they ever truly escape the grip of the sound, or has the darkness woven itself too deeply into their souls? Comment your theories below. Lucas urges, knowing the truth will always elude them. What do you think lies beyond this darkness?